Good day, students. We have already completed the soft ticks earlier. Now we move over to the hard ticks. Now, as already discussed in the previous session, in the previous lecture, we will just find out a brief review of the previous lecture. So we discussed what are the ticks. We discussed the classification of the ticks. We discussed the difference between the hard ticks and soft ticks, as well as we discuss the life cycle and diagnosis as well as control of some of the soft ticks. Now let us talk about the hard ticks. Now hard ticks, as we know, they come under the family Ixodidae, and as we have already discussed, the hard ticks can be differentiated. The male and the female sexes can be differentiated. So there is a sexual dimorphism which exists. So what is the basis of this sexual dimorphism? You see the scutum. So the adult male, what is scutum? Scutum is nothing but a thick, hard, chitinous covering which is present on the dorsal aspect, and this chitinous covering of the scutum is complete. It covers the entire body excepting just posterior to the capitulum. Just posterior to the capitulum, it covers the entire body. Whereas in case of females, the scutum is partial, so it just covers a small portion. Why it is so? It is because the female ticks have to engorge during a blood meal, and almost so you can see the engorgement. So this is the female tick, and as the days progresses, as it takes the blood meal, it engorges. So a single female tick can take around 0.5 to 2 ml of blood, up to 0.5 to 2 ml of blood. So that much amount it can engorge, and after engorgement the female tick will lay eggs and ultimately it will die. So some of the characters of hard ticks. Now these characters you remember, so there are 10, or rather I can say 11 characters, but here I am mentioning 10 important characters, and these characters are important to differentiate between the different species of ticks or different genera of hard ticks. Now what are the differences that I will discuss in the practical? I will give you a separate PowerPoint and a video about how to differentiate the hard ticks, the different genera of hard ticks. But before we go into that, we have to see the criteria. What are those characters on which we differentiate, on the basis of which we differentiate the hard ticks? The first important character is the mouth parts. So mouth parts, that is, this include the central hypostome, then the lateral chelicerae, and the pair of chelicerae and the pair of pedipalps or the palpi. Now if these mouth parts are long, the ticks, they are categorized as longirostrate. If the mouth parts are short, they are categorized as brevirostrate. Now the shape of the capitulum. The basis capituli or the capitulum can have various shapes. It can be rectangular, it can be hexagonal. So all these shapes are important. Second, presence of festoons. So what are festoons we will see in the next slide, but these festoons, whether festoons are present in the tick or they are absent in the tick, the ticks are ornate or inornate. Okay, presence of banding pattern on the legs. So some of the ticks will have smooth, the legs are single color, but some will have brown legs. In between there will be white markings. Okay, the color will not be uniform. So this is known as banding pattern, and these ticks are known as bont-legged. So B-O-N-T, bont-legged ticks. We will come to that when we will be discussing about the morphology of the ticks. The shape of the spiracles. If you remember, the spiracles are the structures through which the respiratory exchange of gases takes place, and in case of hard ticks, these spiracles are present posterior on the posterior lateral aspect of the fourth coxa. Okay, so the shape of the spiracle, whether it is oval, whether it is triangular, whether it is comma shaped, and these are also help in differentiation of the ticks, and as well as the genera of ticks or between the male and the female sex. And then anal groove. So if you remember, the ticks, they have got a median genital pore. The genital pore is on the ventral aspect, it is on the anterior half whereas the anal groove or the anal pore or the anal opening is on the posterior aspect or the posterior half of the idiosoma. Now this anal groove, it can have this anal opening is surrounded by a groove. Now this groove can be posterior, this groove can be anterior, or this anal groove can be totally absent. So depending upon this genera, the groove can be anteriorly placed to the anus, the anal groove can be posterior to the anal opening, or it may be absent. So we'll see that later on. Then size of the coxa. So as you remember, we discussed about the coxa of the first walking appendages, the coxa. Now these coxa, what is the size of the coxa? Whether the coxa has got spur, they are like hook-like projections. Now this can be a single spur, this can be a double spur. The spurs can be present on the first coxa, the spur can be present on all the coxae, or the spur can be present on the first two coxae. So we will see all these things when we discuss about the individual ticks. Now the palpal segments. So what are palpal segments? The palps. The palps are made up of 3 segments. So what is the size of the segment? What is the width of the segment? These are also very important. Then adenal and ventral shields. Now in case of male ticks, now one thing you should remember, the males are very important. Male ticks are very important for identification of the tick species. Now the male ticks, some species of male ticks, they on the ventral side, they have got thick cuticular thickenings. Now these thickenings are like armors. Okay, they are placed like armor, so these are known as shields. So this ventral shields and adenal shields. So what do you mean by adenal shields? The adenal shields are nothing but these are sheets which are adjacent to the anal opening. So they are called the adenal shields. So whether these adenal shields are present, whether these adenal shields are absent, or whether there are no ventral shields at all, or ventral shields are present, so we can differentiate between the genera of ticks. Now identification of the hard tick. Now as we discussed, we will take the individual characters one by one. So what do you mean by longirostrate and brevirostrate? So if you can see the tick on the left hand side, now you see the dark arrow. The dark arrow refers to the mouth parts, the hypostome, chelicerae and the pedipalps, whereas the green arrow refers to the capitulum. Actually capitulum, on the capitulum is placed the mouth parts. So the longirostrate ticks, as you can see, they have long mouth parts. And some of the examples are hyaloma, amblyoma. These are longirostrate. Most of the ticks, other ticks like Rhipicephalus, Ixodes, Dermacenter, Rhipicentor, and all these ticks, they have very short mouth parts. So these are brevirostrate. Now festoons. What do you mean by festoons? Festoons, as you can see the photograph or the picture here. Okay, this is from the dorsal aspect, this is from the ventral aspect. Now see the posterior margin of the tick. The posterior margin of the tick has got a row of notches. So these are notch-like structures which are present on the posterior margin of the tick. This row of notches or the notch-like structures usually go up to 11 in number. Okay, and these are called the festoons. So some ticks may have festoons, some genera that may not have festoons. Okay, so this is the hyaloma and amblyoma. They have got festoons. Now coming to so this is actually a mistake made. These are not the festoons. You just correct it. This is called ornate. Okay. So what do you mean by ornate? So please correct this. The festoons, it is a mistake. So ornate ticks, they refer to the ticks. If you see the scutum of this particular tick, this is Amblyoma variegatum. You can see enamel-like, metallic luster. So they have a color which is enamel-like. So this enamel-like color, if you see in the scutum, then the tick is known as ornate. But if the scutum is dull, there is no metallic luster, there is no coloring, this or enamel-like color. So these are inornate ticks. So example of ornate ticks are Amblyoma variegatum and Dermacenter reticulatus. So this is ornate ticks. Okay, ornate. Sorry, you correct this word festoons, put it as ornate. So now eyes, how can you see the eyes? So this is the dorsal part, the dorsal part of the tick. Now this is the scutum. Now you see just near the second coxa. Here this is the first coxa, this is the second coxa. Just at the level of the second coxa you will see the eyes. These are lateral to the scutum. Just outside the margin of the scutum on the body, on the dorsal aspect. If you remember, in soft ticks they are present on the ventral aspect in the supracoxal folds, but here there are only one pair of eyes. They are on the lateral margin of the scutum on the dorsal aspect, and they are at the level of the second coxa. So this is the second coxa, you can see at the level of the second coxa. Okay, now other morphological features. Now as you can see, this is the dorsal aspect, now ventral aspect. So what I was talking about, the adenal shields. So now you see this is the genital pore in the middle. See the right figure. This is the genital, follow the cursor. So this is the genital pore here. Now this in the positive, this is the anal opening. Now this anal opening, you can see a here groove. Can you see this line that is shown is the posterior anal groove. This is what I was talking about. Sometimes this groove may be absent, it may be indistinct or absent, or in some cases the groove may be anterior. Now just adjacent to the anal opening on the two sides, now see on the right side, on the left side and the left side, you can see there are two thickenings. These are cuticular thickenings. These are known as the adenal shields. Sometimes adjacent to the adenal shields there may be accessory shield, accessory adenal shield. Okay, now you can see the spiracles. This is a comma shaped spiracle, as you can see. Spiracle, comma shape. Now here you can see the festoons. From the dorsal left photograph, you see the dorsal aspect, the festoons on the dorsal aspect. Now these anal shields and adenal shields, they are present only in males. They are absent in females. Now as you can see, this is a female. Okay. Now see the scutum, the festoons. From the ventral side, you see the festoons. You see the spiracles. They are circular here, oval, and you see there are no adenal shields, anal opening, and the posterior anal groove. That's all. Okay. Now coming to the life cycle of the ticks. The life cycle of the hard ticks is very simple. It is not like of the soft ticks. The female tick, it lays eggs in sheltered spot. What are the shelter spots? Cracks and crevices in the wall, in the floor, or under the mat. Wherever they can hide. In the pasture, it can be under the soil, okay, under stones, etc. They lay the eggs. The female egg, these eggs are dark brown in color, as you can see. And the female, after complete engorgement, its 90% of the body mass is converted into eggs. It can lay around 10,000 eggs at a time. After laying the egg, the female tick will die. Now, depending upon the moisture and humidity and the temperature, the eggs will hatch. Generally, 25 to 30 degrees is the usual temperature, optimum temperature, and a humidity of 80% or 70% and above is required. So, once that eggs hatch, the larva will come out. Now, these larvae, they are very small and they are called seed ticks. Now, if in the animal is in the shed, they will go crawl up the walls and they will wait, and once the animal comes they can attach to the animal. Otherwise, in the pasture, what these larvae do, the seed ticks do, they climb up the grasses or the foliage early in the morning, and when the animals go for grazing, they will just attach onto the animals host. Otherwise, when the day comes up, they will again come down the grass and come near the soil, the roots of the grass, so as to avoid themselves from heat and dry conditions. Now, this larva, after attaching, it will feed on the blood. Generally, they feed for a week or so, and then they will molt into the next stage called the nymph. The nymph also feeds, it engorges. You can see here the larva, the nymph, the scutum is partial. It is not complete. Now, after the nymph, they will again feed and then they will molt. Then they will differentiate either into the male. If it is a male, the scutum is complete. If it is a female, the scutum is partial. Now, what does the adult male do? The adult male feeds intermittently. So, it will feed, it will go mate with the female and again come back and feed. And again go and mate with another female. Like this, it will go on. But the female, after mating, what it will do? It will attach itself, feed till it gets engorged. After engorging, then only it falls off or drops off from the host. So this is the life cycle. The entire life cycle takes around 21 days, depending upon 21 to 28 days, depending upon the moisture, humidity, all these conditions. Now we have to remember that this larva, nymph and adult. So there are how many moltings are taking place? There are two moltings. From larva to nymph, one molting is taking place, and from nymph to adult, another molting, a second molting is taking place. So depending where the molting is occurring, whether the molting is taking place on the host or away from the host. Okay, it depends upon where the molting is occurring. The molting can occur on the host. So both the moltings, the first molting from larva to nymph and the second molting from nymph to adult can take place on the host. Or it may so happen that the larva to nymph molting takes place on the host. Nymph after engorgement, it may fall off. The molting to adult may take place away from the host. Okay. Or it may so happen the larva feeds, it falls off, molting takes place, the first molting takes place away from the host on the ground. So molting from the larva to nymph may take place away from the ground. The nymph will again attach to another host, and again the second molting, that is from nymph to adult, can take place away from the ground, away from the host. So depending on that, we will come to the life cycle of the ticks, where it is one host life cycle, or they are called also known as one host ticks, or two host life cycle, also called the two host ticks, and three host life cycle, or also called the three host ticks. So let us see one host ticks or the one host life cycle. What is happening here? You see, the larva, it attaches to the host, the larva feeds, it molts on the body of the host to nymph, the nymph also attaches, it feeds, and again it molts to an adult. So both the molts from the larva to the nymph and the nymph to the adult takes place on the same host, on a single host. So this is called a one host tick or one host life cycle. So one host ticks are those are ticks with one host life cycle, or ticks with one host life cycle complete their life cycle on a single host. The larva attaches to a host, feeds, engorges and molts into nymph, which further feeds and molts into adults on the same host. So thus all the two molts take place on the body of a single host. So that is why it is a one host tick. Now coming two host tick. So in two host ticks, what happens? The larva attaches to the body of the host, it feeds. After feeding, it will molt into the nymph. Okay, so the nymph will also feed on the same host, on the first host itself. And then after feeding, when it engorges, it will fall from the host. Now on the ground, this nymph will molt into an adult. Now this adult has to find a second host. That host can be the same host species, or it can be another species, but it has to be a different animal. So this is a two host tick. So if you see, the two host tick requires two hosts or two animals to complete their life cycle. Now these two animals can be from the same species or can be from the different species. So in the first host, on the first animal, the larva attaches and it undergoes one molting from the nymph. But the nymph will fall down, but it will molt to an adult on the ground, away from the host. And this adult has to find a new host or a second host to complete its life cycle. The example is Hyaloma anatolicum. Okay, it transmits Theileria annulata. And the first one host tick, it is Rhipicephalus microplus. Earlier it was called Buphyllus microplus. Now it has been categorized into the genus Rhipicephalus. It is called as Rhipicephalus microplus. Okay, coming to the three host ticks. Now three host ticks, all the molts, the first molt and the second molt, they all take place on the ground. They are not completed on the molting, is not done on the body of the host. So what happens? The first tick, the larva, it feeds on the first host. After feeding, it engorges, falls down, molting on the ground in the nymph. The nymph now requires a second host. It feeds on the second host, it engorges, falls on the ground, the second molt takes place on the ground, and then after the second molt it forms an adult. Now the adult will attach to the third host. Okay, So don't go by the time gap here. Just remember that in case of 3 host ticks, they require ticks which require 3 hosts to complete their life cycle, and the molting, both the moltings from the larva to the nymph and the nymph to the adult takes place away from the host. Okay, now these are known as the 3 host ticks. The best example is Rhipicephalus sanguineus. It is the brown dog tick. So with this I complete about the introductory part of the heart ticks, and in the next lecture, which I have already submitted in the form of a PDF file, so you can go through what is the importance of the ticks or importance of ticks, how they cause harm. Okay, so I have given you a list of ticks, what are the diseases transmitted by them, how the ticks cause damage or harm the animals, the livestock. So that is discussed. Now in the next lecture I will put up how to control the ticks. Okay, so first I will talk about the control of soft ticks in general, and then talk about the control of hard ticks. Thank you. Have a good day.